Welcome everybody to another CKCA national discussion. This is number 12 for us. We're very pleased today to be discussing a topic, and I kind of put in a fun title to this one because I happened to think of the song, I guess, when we were creating this webinar. So this really is about solar power. Very excited to be covering a topic like this. It's a little bit different than what we normally do, but very relevant, I think, for all of you today. A few housekeeping notes. If we have any technical issues, we'll reschedule, touch wood. Remember to unmute to speak and then keep yourself on mute so that we don't pick up all of your background noise. The session is being recorded today, so it will be available to you on demand. And we will be doing a Q&A at the very end. Now, just give me one moment because I have a few more people joining. And I'll add them in. Okay. They keep coming. All right, that's great. Got a great turnout today. So my name is Sandra Wood. I'm the Executive Director of CKCA. I've provided you with my coordinates there. Please reach out to me at any time. You never know, sometimes the conversation I have with you might end up with me scooping you up and convincing you that we should do a webinar together. So just a reminder, you should be hearing from us weekly with our news clippings and certainly monthly with our newsletters and other important e-blasts. If you're not hearing from us, that's a red flag. We're hitting your spam and not your inbox. So be sure to touch base with me and let me know so that we can see if we can fix that, because I like to be in touch with you on a regular basis as our members. Today we have a great agenda lined up. I'm going to tell you a little bit about CKCA first, and then we're going to go straight into our presentations. So I'm very excited about who we've lined up today, and I'll get to that in just a moment. And at the very end, we'll do Q&A as well. Just a reminder that the CKCA Board of Directors are your industry representatives on the CKCA board. And I won't list all of their names, but here they all are for you. We do have an upcoming annual meeting, so there will be a slight change being made to the roster. But this is your board of directors, so please feel free. If you can't reach me, feel free to reach out to any of the board members. Some of the things that CKCA is working on, I thought you would be interested in knowing. We have about 30 dedicated volunteers, which is a great number of people that are helping us, knowing how busy everybody is these days. We're working on improving the skilled labor shortage, which I know is a major pain point for everybody in the industry. We're working on strengthening competitiveness, and that's in a variety of different ways. You've been hearing us talk about promoting the Made in Canada piece, as well as, you know, the adoption of new technologies. And as well as that, continual improvement. And we do that through training, education, webinars, sharing information like this today with all of you. This is how we all get better as an industry. And most importantly, we want to keep the industry connected, especially the last 2.5 years. We've been very much in our own silos because of what's been going on, but we've managed to stay connected and we want to continue that. A couple of dates that are coming up that we wanted to just remind you about, and I have a couple of people who want to come in, so I'm just going to admit them. We have our annual meeting coming up on May the 25th at 2 o'clock Eastern time, and notices just went out yesterday to everybody. You're welcome to attend that meeting. We also have every month for all of the manufacturers. Remember, you just mute whoever's just is making noise. Can you please mute? I'm just going to mute everybody. Okay. Okay. Can you still hear me? Okay, great. All right. So we have the manufacturers roundtable that happens on the last Thursday of every month for an hour. It's an informal discussion, whatever agenda you want, whatever topics you want to bring up. It's just a chance to compare notes with other manufacturers across the country. So we've done 2 of these so far. As I mentioned, they're the last Thursday of every month. If you're interested in attending, let me know. I'll add you to the calendar. You'll get reminders. You hop on when you can. Anyway, they're great sessions, and as I mentioned, it's a great way to stay connected with the industry. And then finally, very excited, maybe I need to touch wood for this as well. We actually have a face-to-face event, which will probably be, well, almost close to 3 years by the time we run it, since we've actually seen everybody. And that is on September the 28th to October the 1st down in Waterloo, Ontario. We will be touring manufacturers, including Sherwin Kitchens and Barzotti Woodworking. Some really great plant tours are planned, but also an opportunity to meet face-to-face and talk to each other, which I think everybody's just, it's a great opportunity to do that. And I think we're all dying to do it. So those are a few dates to make a note of. Our goal from our session today really is to kind of touch on a bit of a pain point with you, not a PowerPoint, a pain point, because I am hearing from a lot of you about how your power bills are going up. Everything's going up. We know that. And we thought, wouldn't it be neat if we could actually present you with something where maybe you could actually bring the cost of something down. So today's session is about sharing the journey of one company who has done just that and how they've done it and their lessons learned along the way. So our goal today is to share this information with you and maybe plant some seeds with you, and also dispel some myths about solar, because in the past, things have changed a lot and it's a much more viable option than it ever has been before. And Ed is going to get into talking about that. So our presenters today are Denka Cabinets and Charge Solar. And I'm very pleased to introduce you to Ed Nags, right? Ed, not Cags, my apologies, who is Vice President of Charge Solar. And he's one of Canada's leading solar distributors for over 30 years. Ed's career has been focused on design and project management in the field of photovoltaics. And I struggle to say that word. He is a professional engineer with a degree in electrical engineering from Dalhousie University, and he has over 18 years of experience with remote storage-based and grid-connected systems. He has also designed curriculum for and facilitated seminars to educate technicians in installation, marketing, and design of that photovoltaic systems. He is a current member of several CSA technical committees for solar energy products and standards. So we're very thrilled to have Ed with us today. I'm also equally pleased to have Heidi and Dominic Boudreau, who are the owners of Denka Cabinets, whose roots go back to 1975 when Heidi's parents came to Canada from Denmark and started the business. Heidi and Dominic have extensive experience in the industry and are the current owners. They continue the legacy of building high-end custom kitchens for customers in Alberta, BC, and I know there's probably other provinces in there, as well as I believe they get to go to Hawaii sometimes too. Heidi has also been on the CKCA Board of Directors for the past 6 years, and most recently served as president during probably, as Heidi and I have talked about, 2 of the most challenging years for the association. We're very grateful to have both Heidi and Dominic. Dominic, who is driving and en route, so he is not sitting at a desk. So thank you, Dominic, for squeezing us in today. But we're very much looking forward to hearing your solar story. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Heidi, and I'm going to let Heidi, we're going to start with Ed. Ed's going to do a bit of an introduction, and then we will hear from Heidi and Dominic. So let me just stop sharing my screen, and then you can go ahead. There we go.
Excellent. Thanks, Sandra. So I'm just going to go over some of the basics and some of the things about the industry, and then we'll hand it off to Heidi and Dominic to actually go through an example. And they'll talk about a lot of the things that I touch on, but with their system and how they accomplish some of those goals. The solar industry has grown significantly over the last decade and is poised to grow even further and at an increased rate over the next decade. On this, you see the purple line that is depicting the growth rate of the industry year on year, and that's how much solar is being installed each year. So you can see the acceleration right at the end to last year, where we almost installed 200 gigawatts of solar just in 2021. And this year is looking to exceed that number. The red line that's overlaid that's the cost of the solar modules themselves, which you can see is trended downward quite nicely. If we go all the way back to 2003, Germany started what's called a feed-in tariff program. Germany decided to make solar a significant part of their energy resource. So they launched this program where you put solar on your home or building and you actually sell it back to the utility, and the government subsidizes that. So it's at quite an attractive rate. That really boomed the solar industry, and a lot of factories came online, too many that the installers couldn't keep up with the demand, and the factories had overproduced. We had an oversupply situation, which then is what forced that downward slope you see on the cost curve. That downward slope actually represents about an 80% drop over that 5-year period. So it's a significant plummet in the price of solar modules. It's continuing to go down, but very slight rates. We actually might see a little bit of an increase this year, but now we're at a very attractive price for solar, and the industry continues to grow. All over the world, like Germany, countries are creating solar programs to incentivize the growth. It's not required anymore. We're at an attractive rate, but it helps sort of accelerate the adoption. And Canada is no different. Canada had several programs throughout its history. We had the Ontario feed-in tariff, so similar to Germany. That ran from 2009 to 2015. Alberta has had a number of different rebates, along with Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Nova Scotia. The territories have all had a variety of different rebate programs. Some have come, some have gone, some are coming back. Currently today, there is a federal program called the Greener Homes Program, which is for residential situations. So if you're interested in looking at your own home, that's a great program to look at, and that's $5,000 towards your solar system. So it's quite significant. And then on the commercial side, there's a standing federal capital cost allowance for solar systems, where you're allowed to depreciate that asset 100% in the first year. So it's quite attractive. And then there's another federal program that might be coming back, which is the Climate Action Fund. It's supposed to be coming back this year. Over 2021, out of that global market, Canada installed around 222 megawatts. It's a significant chunk with, our best years were probably when the Ontario program was running, but now we're continuing at a more stable, steady rate. So it's nice to see that continuing year on year. And a lot of these programs throughout the world are based on the economic benefit. Solar has a very good job creation rate. So what we're seeing is a lot of programs that are developed to boost the local economy. And typically where the solar installations are happening is where the jobs are being created. So it's very good for provinces and their economic development. Most of these programs are now based on what's called net metering or net billing. So I thought I would just touch on that a little bit. And that's where you're putting a solar system on your building or home, and you're trying to offset your electricity. So you're getting electricity from the sun when it's available, and when it's not, you're pulling in from the grid. So the grid is acting like more of like a top-up for when sun's not available. So if in the morning it was, sun's just rising, you're only getting a little bit of power out of your solar array, the additional power that you need for your loads in your building or home would come from the grid, but you are consuming less. And then there might be a point towards midday where your solar system is producing more than you need and power is flowing back out onto the grid. Depending on what province you live in, that's going to work either as a credit in energy, so in your kilowatt hours that would get put onto your bill, or it'll be an actual dollar value for that credit that flows back onto the grid. And then that will get subtracted from your final bill. What can you do for your building? So this is just to give you an idea, and it's good to have a general idea of the, what's capable on your rooftop. So if you had a building, we use 5 watts per square foot. So if you know your roof area of that building, then you can quickly determine how much solar could fit on there. That's quite a conservative number. So there's a chance that you can do more, but there will be, things like HVAC equipment and stuff on the roof. There might be some shading issues. So it's good to get you in just sort of a ballpark to do that. And you see on this example that, we take this roof that has a number of different areas and we work out the square footage, we multiply that by 5, and then we get a value in those watts and sum up those 3 different areas. So for this building, we can fit 130,000 watts or 130 kilowatts of solar. And that's a good starting point for you to get an idea of what your building point can do. And then once you know that, then you would move on to start to look at the energy that that solar system could produce. To do this, it's of course going to depend where you live in Canada. So you can see the solar resource map that's shown here, with the red areas are the better producers, yellow being average, and then into the green is a little bit less. Canada's average as a whole is around 1150 kilowatt hours per kilowatt. So I know a lot of math, but that is trying to tell you how much energy you would get out of the system size. So the kilowatts, as we depicted in the previous slide for that rooftop, that amount, so that 130 kilowatts would be the system size, and then the amount of energy you would get in a year, you would multiply that by the 1,150 Canadian average, and then I'll just give you a rough idea. There are a lot of tools out there that can calculate this precisely, and once you get into this, so this is sort of just to get you into the ballpark. A lot of people question whether we have enough sunlight in Canada to make solar viable. And Germany, who started that program back in 2003, they're still the world leader in solar, and you can see them listed on there where they have 30% less sun than Canada does. So to me, that points to Canada is very well positioned to be a leader in solar energy. So once you've sort of determined what the solar system is outputting, you do want to compare that to your load, because most of the programs, as I said, are using that net metering or net billing, which is meant to try and net out your load. So try and cover how much you're consuming. So the graph here shows the red is, a typical consumption month to month of a building, and it's overlaid with a PV system. So you can see that in the summer months, you wouldn't be receiving a bill. You would actually be completely netting out your load, and you're actually putting a little bit extra into the grid. So you're getting those credits that I talked about. Those credits can then be used for the months in the wintertime where you're pulling in more from your grid. And so using that example we had before, that 130 kilowatt roof, we multiply that by the Canadian average, the 1150. So that system would produce 150,000 kilowatt hours per year. And you can look on your utility bills to then compare that to what your building would be consuming and make sure it's in line. Do you need to reduce the system size to then match your consumption. And then, of course, there is the financial side, which I know Heidi and Dominic are going to go into quite a bit. So I'll just touch on it, and then it's probably easier to understand from an example. But what we do to look at costs of varying different sizes and equipment and stuff like that is we take the total installed cost, because that's what we want to focus on. So that's everything included in the system to get it up and running. And we take that total cost and we divide it by the amount of solar watts. And that gives us what's called a cost per watt. And that lets us quickly compare systems. And it also lets us estimate system costs. So for example, we had that 130,000 watt system, and we could multiply that. It's going to range from somewhere between $2 and $2.50. And you can see that would be somewhere in the range of 260,000 to 325,000. Remember, this is just to give you a ballpark to get you an idea of what that's going to cost. And then again, you could reduce this system size if that's not fitting your budget on what you want to spend that year. Then reduce the system size, and that would of course reduce the cost. Keeping in mind that there are some fixed costs as well as variable costs. So the bigger the system, you tend to get a little bit of a more advantage, and that's why you see the cost range in the table above. So it's varying your cost per watt. Costs are also made up of the hardware costs, which we talked about how the solar module costs plummeted. And now we do a lot of work on what we call the soft costs, things like webinars that educate people, help with customer acquisition so that you don't need to explain all the benefits and things that people already are aware of them, they already know. And that's big in Germany. Germany, solar is just a matter of when you're going to put it in and how much you're going to put it in. There's no decisions need to be made or thought process is eliminated. And that does take cost out of the system. Installation labor, as our market grows, installations are going to occur more often and efficiencies are made. And a lot of that has been happening already. With the global market, we get to take advantage of some of the things that are, with innovations that cut down installation time and things like that in other jurisdictions. We pull those into Canada. That cost is really important because that cost then filters into what we call levelized cost of energy. And this is just a term that's used throughout the energy industry to compare different types of energy. And for us, we're typically comparing against the utility rates. So we come up with our levelized cost of energy so that we can compare to what you would be normally purchasing from your utility. And that just means taking that total installed cost and dividing it by the lifetime energy of the solar system. So that would be the energy it produces every year. And then typically we use actually the warranty period for the solar modules, which is 25 years. So over that 25-year warranty period, we would have a certain amount of energy that then we can determine that cost of energy. The solar, of course, with the install costs, module costs, plus all the installation, all those sorts of things coming down, that you see depicted by the blue and green curves in the graph, and the red and pink are the utility rates that are going up. The crossover point is what we call grid parity. And you can see grid parity actually occurred in it was actually probably a little bit later than the graph shows, is closer to 2016, but we've now passed that point. And depending on how fast utility rates go up, which they're usually subsidized, so they tend to try and, the red curve is probably going to be more realistic. But solar is going to continue to come down. And certainly when you add on layers of funding, so even an unfunded solar system, you're going to be below 8 cents a kilowatt hour is your levelized cost of energy today. So that's quite attractive when comparing to most utility rates. And then depending on your system size, that rate just goes down from there. That would actually be on the residential scale. So on the commercial scale, you're probably going to be closer to 6 or 7 cents per kilowatt hour. There are a number of different benefits. I'm not going to spend too much time here because I know Heidi is going to talk about these quite a bit, but there is, for businesses, there's certainly a marketing element. You know, solar modules are very visual and can give a very good green presence to your business. Again, there's that capital cost allowance that I talked about, value added to your building. So you are adding an asset to your building. You're doing an improvement to the building. So it is adding value. There was a study done in California that was dollar for dollar. So if you invested X amount in a solar system, your building was worth that value. It added that increased value to your building. Energy independence. So there's just a good feeling about you know, producing your own power. You know, I have always compared this to growing your own vegetables and things like that. Like, it's just, you know, it's a nice feeling. And that's what energy independence is about. And then, of course, there's the environmental benefits and the levelized cost of energy that we already discussed. And I'll let Heidi go through that in her example. So on that note, I will stop sharing and then we can hand it over. Heidi, you're ready to share.
Let me unmute here. Okay. So yeah, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Heidi Boudreau, like Sandra said, and my husband Dominic here, he's on the road, but he is with us. We operate out of a 40,000 square foot building here in Calgary. And our solar journey began way back in 2017 when Dom attended a solar seminar because we were looking for solar panels for our home at the time. And we had decided that we wanted to become more self-sufficient, and we had dreamt of living on a farm where Ed kind of talked about, you know, growing your own food. Well, things didn't really go exactly as planned because COVID hit right kind of when we were planning on making that move. So we decided to stay put in our home at that time. However, we decided we wanted to focus on Denka and reducing our carbon footprint and find ways to reduce our operating expenses and incorporate our personal commitment to self-sustainability into our corporate culture. So in April of 2021, we purchased our solar system right after COVID hit. Some people would call us ballsy, but we had a commitment, a long-term goal. So we did it anyways, and it ended up being a good choice for us. We weren't up and running because of COVID until just this year in February. So it's a journey, and it's not something that happens overnight. We actually also realized our farm dream in January of 2022, where we purchased 23 acres just outside of Calgary here, and we're learning to grow our own food, and we're raising our own animals. I'll go on to the next slide. You can see kind of what we got going on. So this also was a further commitment for us to be more environmentally friendly for our future generations. So, and our kids love it, and they're almost adults. So it's just showing how you can bring that back into generations, that growing food locally is good for the planet as well. As long as ooh, I'm tongue-tied like Sandra. Anyways, why we picked solar. We're living in a gilded age of corporate responsibility and corporate ethics. More than ever, consumers and employees are paying attention to the ethical standards that businesses are putting into place. A focus on minimizing your carbon footprint can help the environment by limiting water pollution and excess greenhouse gases. But the benefits of commercial solar power extend beyond powering your workspace. So basically, the reasons we picked it was, well, we figured out we could reduce our operating expenses over time. There was some great tax savings, and our return on investment made sense. It also gave us a marketing strategy, setting us apart from our competition. We can advocate green energy. It's great for presenting it from an environmentally image to the public. And we were actually super surprised at how proud our employees are that we are 70% solar powered here. We brought them up onto the roof and they were really impressed. And I'm going to show you a video of that in a little bit here. We also picked it because of its lifespan. It has 25 years. We're told it can last much longer than that, ensuring decades of electricity generation, and it's very, very low maintenance, and it's a clean, renewable energy resource. So some things that we considered and things that I think are important, because I don't think solar is for everybody. So just considering if it's good for you. Calgary, we have a lot of sun here. So we get, I think we're third rated. Ed can probably knows better than that, but that's what I know, that we get a lot of sun here in Calgary. So it's an ideal city for solar energy. Also, we had to determine how long we were going to stay at our current location. The building is family owned. So for us, it's an investment, like Ed said. But it's also, I know that some people have really good relationships with their landlords, and sometimes deals can be made there as well. But we decided we were going to stay here. We're not going to move shop anytime soon. We're centrally located. So, and then also we had to talk about how we were going to finance these solar panels. Were we going to self-finance them, go to the bank? So we figured that out. One of the major drivers was the tax incentive by the Canadian government. Like Ed mentioned, we were able to capitalize on that first year tax depreciation, which has been great for us. And we were also able to go into the ESB program for the Alberta government, where we saved 25% off of our solar panels. Another thing that we had to consider, we had a couple different quotes when we were looking, and we did have one solar company that suggested that we put 803 solar panels on our roof. We ended up with 466, and I'll tell you why. We decided we wanted to stay in to be a micro generator. In Alberta, we are on a net metering. So we're not getting any money into our pocket if we overproduce. We have to use those credits up. So we have to actually utilize our energy. So that's where our jurisdictions are. So it didn't make sense for us to overproduce power that we weren't going to use because it wasn't going to give us any benefits. And also, if you're a large micro generator, there's a lot more, I'm going to call it red tape around there, where there's some distributed energy resource requirements, and there's a significant cost that you have to incur when you become one of the bigger generators. So a small micro generator, we are compensated at the retail price for electricity, whereas the large micro generators are compensated on like the Alberta's pool price, which is more variable as well. So anyways, that's a whole other topic, but yeah, we ended up with a smaller system, but it's actually still quite large if you look at it. And we also had to consider the space we have on the roof, like Ed talked about, and actually the age and the style of our roof. We're on a flat panel roof, so that was ideal for solar. But if you have a really old roof, you probably want to redo your roof before you put solar panels on. But we had just redone our roof, so we were in a good situation there. This is our layout. So this is the top view. This is the module layout of our solar panels. So there's 466 panels on our system. That's just to show you that. The math. This is what everybody likes to know about. How much did it cost us? What do we think our return on investment is going to be? So at the time, we actually use more power today because we've added more machinery and night shifts and things like that. But at the time when we did the math, we were using 350,000 kilowatt hours of power a year. And our solar system can generate up to 237,500 kilowatt hours of power, which will save us, approximately, when I'm doing my math here, around that $36,000 mark, especially today. I updated the value because when we did this, it wasn't going to be that much, but our electricity has almost doubled and sometimes tripled since we bought our solar panels. So the cost has gone up the roof here. I don't know, I'm guessing it's going up the roof everywhere. But we were in a great 5-year locked-in plan with NMAX, and then that changed. And now we're paying a lot more and on a variable rate. So we were happy we decided to go with solar when we did. So our system cost us, I was going to talk about the size. So Ed's example was a little bit smaller than ours. Ours is a 209 kilowatt system. So when I looked at his pricing, it's right around the lines of where we should be, in my opinion. So we paid $283,000 for this system, but we were able to get grants. So our total out of pocket was 212, and we estimate our tax savings to be, we're around that $53,000 mark. These are really rough numbers. So our total kind of, the way we look at it, cost was just around that $160,000 mark. So we're estimating that our, this is the graph that we were provided with, that our break-even point's just around that four-year mark. And that our solar panels, now they're doing this one, I think, over 30 years, not the 25, but should produce us approximately, $2.4 billion in electricity during their lifespan. So that's a big chunk of power, if you ask me. So we're quite happy with it. This is the video of, and I don't know if it's going to play. So if it doesn't, just bear with me. Oh, well, you guys can see it. So this is me just walking on the roof to show you kind of how big it is. And this is just one side of the roof. And you'll see the other side soon. So it's nice and quiet because it doesn't make any noise. So it doesn't bother the neighbors. And then you can just keep scrolling down. And that's the other side of the roof there where we added some more panels. So you can't really see them over there, but that is our system. Yeah. Yeah, so I'm just going to play again. So I guess the impact. Our solar system will produce enough energy for an electric vehicle to drive 45,500,000 kilometers. So that's a lot of kilometers that a car could drive. It's going to save just about 3.9 million in CO2 emissions. And it's an equivalent to just about 80,000 trees planted. So for me, that was enough to convince me that we should go ahead because of the environmental impact and for the future generations. So in conclusion, why we picked solar is, well, there's a high return on the investment. It eliminates unpredictable energy expenses. It reduces the environmental degradation, It's a sign of commitment to sustainability to your employees and to your customers. It ensures that business remains competitive. It benefits from the government renewable incentives. It increases the productivity of employees. And it's the creation of employment in the solar industry, which is obviously growing. So yeah, that is a quick snippet of our solar panel experience. I'm going to stop my share here and go from there.
Thanks, Heidi. I think, do we want to just stop and ask any questions at this point, or Ed was going to add a few more things in now that Heidi has presented. So Ed, do you want to?
Yeah, I think Q&A, and then what I can do is just, if I need to bring up any slides to help answer those questions, or same for Heidi, I mean, depending what the question is, either of us can do that. That's probably a good way to go from here.
Okay. All right. So just a reminder, if you have a question, I see there's been a little bit of chat there. I was going to look to see what was in the chat box, but if you have a question, don't forget to unmute or just wave so that we can see you. So let me just see what we've got here. Okay, maybe I'll just go to the, I'm not sure if the questions got answered from the chat, but let me have a look at what was there. So Dave Trznicki, oh my goodness, I can't talk today. David was asking, is it feasible?
You can add some vowels into the name if you'd like.
Don't make me say photovoltaic too many times either. So David was asking if it's feasible to split the cost of the panels with a neighbor in a separate building beside, but not connected to yours, or are installers limited to only one address per install? So that's the first question. I don't know.
Yeah, so to answer that, you right now, and I mean, it does vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but most of them you have to be on the same property. Nova Scotia is the only one I know. They have a program, whereas if you own multiple properties that are in the same area, that's typically for rural, some of the farms have multiple services that comes into them. You can consolidate those onto one system. But in most other provinces, you would have to be on that building that is consuming, because it has to go through the same. Has a lot to do with the utility account and the meter itself and how the relationship works between those. So Nova Scotia right now is the only one that has that ability if you own all the same properties and they're in the same location. So it's quite limiting, unfortunately.
Okay. There was another question from Gerald, who was asking you, Ed, and Gerald's in Vancouver, that he had looked into solar a while ago. And do you know if the BC government has a similar program or a grant available?
Yeah, and I think someone already mentioned it. Right now, you do get the PST exemption. So that does help, 7%. And then you would get the capital cost allowance on the federal side. But that's currently the only, some of the hidden benefits in BC right now is their net metering program. And similar to Alberta, there's no cost. Some other provinces will have an application fee, and some of them that haven't rolled out bidirectional meters, they'll have a meter swap fee as well. So those are eliminated in BC, and there's also reduced permitting now in BC as well. So all those three things actually add up to probably about another 5% savings, depending on your system size.
Okay, thank you. And it looks like David again was saying that my research GV game came up pretty dry on BC initiatives, nominal amounts on PST, but we decided not to count on any provincial for the time being. David, did you want to add anything further to that? I guess that's more of a
No,
comment.
that's exactly what Ed just answered, and that in the CCA. So I'm glad he answered that too, because it just confirmed what my findings as well.
Okay, perfect.
Thanks.
Luke Elias was asking, can the same system feed both 110 volt and 600 volt?
You would have to have a transformer in there. So it's once you determine what sort of connection point you're going to be connecting to and the voltage and setup of that connection point, there is multiple products to pick. So you would then select what product you want to pick, and sometimes you'll still need a transformer that will blend that product into your electrical service. But that's done on a regular, normal basis. A lot of the equipment is US based, so for systems that have 600 volt services, we do need a transformer because a lot of the equipment is 480 volt, which is a US commercial service size.
Okay, and Luke actually also said it was 600 volt 3-phase. That's what he was referring to.
Yeah, so there is, typically on those we would connect with a 480 volt 3-phase system and go through a transformer.
Okay, all right. See if there's any other questions. I don't see anything. No questions right now. One thing I know oh, sorry, Gerald, did you have one? Go ahead, Gerald, just unmute.
Sorry, yes, I did have a question. It's related to, oh, crumb, what was it again? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. It'll come back to me. I'll get back to it.
Okay. All right. I was just going to ask, because I did ask Ed this question when we were prepping for this webinar, and that was, with supply right now being strained everywhere, I was curious if you could speak to, availability of these systems. Are you experiencing a lot of delays with supply of solar panels?
We are. Some of it is getting better. I mean, last year, and particularly the last half of last year, was where it probably peaked at its worst. With solar modules for us, we buy them almost a year out. So we had a big pipeline already coming in. As other suppliers got constrained, of course, then that sends them our way and dips further into our supplies. But it is manageable. You just have to expect, just like any construction, so that there is going to be a little bit longer lead times. Where you could turn around and have a system up and installed in a couple months. For a large commercial system, you might be waiting now 2 or 3 months to get the equipment. So that's just going to add into that construction time.
Okay. Gerald, you had your hand raised there.
Correct. Yeah, no, I remember what I was going to say. Are you based out of Alberta, or do you work in all jurisdictions across the country? And second question was in particular to British Columbia. I know that BC Hydro had a pretty dim view of interconnect solar systems, and they were trying to wiggle their way out of it so that they could charge higher rates across the board. Has that been settled? That they kind of, is there a long-term commitment in place that ensures that if you go on board with a system full-blown and then Hydro can't turn back and say, oh, sorry, but we changed the rules now?
Well, to answer the first question, we're straight across Canada. We have offices all throughout, and we work in all those jurisdictions. And the nice thing about that is we get to see the difference in the different programs, how the utilities treat the programs, and what the governments do. And just to help you understand that, there's 2 layers there. There would be the government layer, and they would set in usually a regulation. So in Heidi's case, they're using the microgen program, which is mandated by the government that there is a microgen program, and some of the basic rules are set out with there. And then the utilities would work on like the interconnection and things like that. So for BC, we would have the government's influence, and we would have the utilities. And then to regulate the utilities, there's also Utilities Commission. So the net metering programs tend to get protected by that process. So if the utility wants to make a change, they have to go through the Utilities Commission, and that's overseen by the government. So in that BC Hydro case, that's exactly what happened. They tried to make a change. It went to the commission. Both the public, the associations, the government all respond to that. Same thing happened in Nova Scotia. So there was actually quite an aggressive proposal sent in by the utility to the Utility Commission in Nova Scotia. And it was very refreshing for me, who's been in the industry for a long time. The public first rose up. The government actually stepped in and was commenting that, you know, this is not in line with their, and they didn't support this application. So the utility withdrew it. Since then, the government actually just pushed through a new bill in Nova Scotia that now will prevent the utility from attempting this again, which was really nice to see. You know, it's a really positive sign that governments are really coming behind these, you know, load offset type systems that Heidi described.
Thank you. I have one more question. I think it looks like Luke again. Can you speak a little bit more to the reliability and warranty? Heidi had mentioned 25 years. Now, I'm not sure if that's a question for Heidi or for Ed or both of you, but.
I'll let Heidi take that one because I think she's got some good experience there.
Not really, but I just know that the 25-year warranty gave me peace of mind. There's a lot of myths about solar panels and trouble, like let's say with hail. And let me tell you, Calgary is hail central. And I know that there was a huge hailstorm that cost billions of dollars in Calgary, and there was a massive solar system that was installed, and they only had one glass panel break. So I think like you don't have to, like personally, I don't worry about that, and I'm not worried too much about rodents and those kind of things because it's on my rooftop. Whereas if I was on the if you're doing it on a field or something like that, I maybe Ed can talk a little bit about that. I would be more worried about that, but yeah, that's kind of my experience.
Yeah, and I would agree with you 100%. I mean, there is the 25-year warranty, but it's going to go beyond that. And that warranty is, it's telling you that you're going to have a certain power level at year 25. So it's going to continue beyond that. And really the warranty after that period, because that's what all the cost calculations and paybacks and things are done on that 25-year period. So after that is just, you know, gravy. The inverter equipment is typically 10 years. You can get extensions to 25 years, and we do see a lot of people doing that so that the entire system has a 25-year warranty. And then, like Heidi mentioned too, is the maintenance side. So there's not much to do, is there? It just kind of sits there, almost boring.
I have another question for you. In terms of the when you were getting it installed, was it very disruptive to your business? Like, did you have to shut the power down in the whole building at some point when you plugged in? How did that work? I don't know who wants to answer that one.
Yeah, I can answer to that. I mean, they're working outside, so they're not really disrupting our business whatsoever. The only time they really disrupt us is when they had to turn the power off, but we just did a scheduled power right after, like our shop closes at 3:30. So we scheduled it there. It was very quick, maybe an hour, and that was it. And we were on, and then we just had to get all our permits approved, and then we were on the grid. So it was very, very streamless.
Okay. And another question I do have for you as well is, because I think you mentioned it, Heidi, in your presentation, how, I mean, you were saying how your employees were excited about this, working for a company that has this. And we certainly know that next generation coming in is holding companies to higher standards around that. But what about your customers? Do you plan to do more to market what you're doing there around that?
Yeah, 100%. We met with our website and our marketing kind of team yesterday, actually, and we're kind of revamping our website, and we're going to start putting it into our communications. And we are from Alberta. We are an oil and gas country here, but there's still people that appreciate solar panel, and we work a lot into BC. Where that's really environmental into there. So yeah, definitely going to leverage as much as we can, because we really can advertise that we make green cabinets. Yeah.
That's great. And it looks like I've got another question here. Gerald's asking, if your consumption never exceeds the inputs from solar, he's asking, does BC Hydro write out a check for the difference?
Just to explain that carefully, that graph I had up where you're comparing the solar, remember the solar every month compared to the consumption. Now, if you go over that, so if you're always underneath that, then all you're doing is you're just buying less from them. So there's actually no really interaction. If you go over that, the first thing they do for BC Hydro is they give you an energy credit. So it's actually in kilowatt hours, and that will sit on your bill. You actually have a spot on your bill that's called your customer generation account, and you can see that build over the summer. And they'll sum up the kilowatt hours in that, and then over the winter, you'll use up that credit. The way BC Hydro works is that on an anniversary date, if you haven't used up that credit, they will pay you that amount at the commercial rate, let's call it. So that's what they can buy power at on a regular basis. And that was actually what was discussed earlier with that, the utility commission case. That was actually one of the results that resolved with that, was that BC Hydro still had to buy your power even if you had an access at the end at the commercial rate. So that's quite good for that program.
Okay. Thank you. Heidi and Dominic, I guess that one thing I'd like to ask you is, if you had to go through the whole process again, was there anything you'd do a bit differently than what you've done? I mean, apart from saying, well, if COVID hadn't happened, but any other sort of recommendations to this?
No, I mean, we were pretty educated going into it. We did a lot of research. Like Dom went as far as attending some solar classes and presentations, and I mean, he's very electrical inclined. I'm not, so he understood the mathematics, and so for us, I think it's just based on where your understanding lies, and it can get confusing. It's a lot of information to take in, at least for me it was. But I just say do your research, and not every single company is going to give you the same advice, because that wasn't our experience. We had one company who was going to oversize us way too big, and it wouldn't have made sense for us. So I think just taking your time, there's no rush. I mean, it's making the right decision and making an informed decision. So.
Okay. One other question for you. Once you hit that break-even point in a couple of years, I think it was, what are you going to do with all that newfound money you have?
Oh, don't you worry. Dom's good at buying machinery. I'm not too worried about that.
I think that means you'll need more solar panels. You'll have to add more solar panels for all the new machinery that you buy.
Right? Yeah, I know.
Ed, was there anything more that you wanted to add, as we're just at the hour here? I wondered if you had more to add to this.
No, I mean, it's exciting to see that you guys are doing this, and I think that it's great for everybody to get an idea, and you just put that idea into the hopper and see when it makes sense for you. There's no rush, but it's great to see that people are getting up to speed and learning about this.
Yeah, definitely. I have one more question here from Alexandra. Are monocrystalline still the best panels on the market? Is there better technology available?
So they're talking about the actual cells inside the solar modules, and there's various different types of cells that you can get, and monocrystalline was one of them. So most of the industry, and some of it was performance versus price. Now most of the industry has gone to a monocrystalline type cell. So it is the most popular. And then there's certain things that they're doing inside the cells. And all of this just leads to, in the same sort of frame size, how much power you can get out of that. And the power, of course, translates into energy, as we talked about that. So that is very exciting to see that the industry, I mean, solar modules, say even 10 years ago, were half the power. So they've doubled in their output with just different changes to the different cells that go into the modules.
Okay, thank you. I have to share this very quick story with you. I got an email from Corey, who from Horizon Kitchens. I guess we had a couple of people from Horizon that were going to be on this call, but they had a power outage, so they couldn't log in. Anyway, yes, the session will be recorded, and yes, I'm more than happy to share that with.
Yeah, you couldn't script it at a better time.
Well, and that actually leads into where the future's heading. I mean, solar it's just a cost-effective means of getting energy, but now it's what we do with that, and the battery storage market is what's really changing and turning, and that's one of the reasons is for backup power. But then there's a bunch of other things that you can do with the stored energy as well, which is next year's webinar, right?
One final thing too, I can tell you that in the work that I'm doing here, and I'm speaking with different organizations, I do know that the government, the federal government, certainly, we know they have a very big green agenda. And I think that will just really pave the way for more opportunities to go this way for running your businesses. There will be incentives, tax incentives. I think we will see more funding coming through. So, as you start to contemplate whether to do this or not, that's something to consider in the long term, because we all know climate change isn't going to go away anytime soon. And, just having access to power as you need it. Also, I think we're learning maybe in the current world, political environment, that's also another important factor. So is there any final comments that Heidi, Dominic, or Ed, if you'd like to add or to this session today?
Not on my end. That was great.
You're done?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to say thank you so much for your time. This has been an excellent presentation. I hope it's been a bit eye-opening for those who've taken the time to attend. If you're contemplating solar, if you have questions, I would be happy to give you Ed's contact information. And I know Heidi, is probably happy as well to answer some questions. So yeah, I mean, as things progress, we can always do another session on this later on. And if you are contemplating doing it or you're already in the middle of it, wish you all the best with it. And it sounds like it's been a great decision for Danka. I'm very happy for you, and keep enjoying those lower power bills. All right.
100%. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.